In this video, I just want to walk you through all the different ways that I host my own websites and public-facing services, because I use a variety of different hosts and background tools and whatever to make this happen. And while I don't actually recommend going the route that I have where I'm hosting in a million different places, and I would recommend condensing as much as possible so that you can save money, my job here is to learn these things and experiment and try them out and showcase them to you. So don't follow my example of using all of them, but I just want to serve as a starting point or a possible source of inspiration for those of you looking to start taking control of your online experience, your online presence, and whatever. As things continue to get weirder online, I think I see a lot of people looking for where that starting point is. And I've made a few videos on hosting your own website and things like that. And there's lots of new things that I want to showcase too. But I just want to walk you through everything I've got going on right now so you can get a feel for what your options might be. Does that make sense? All right, let's jump in. First and foremost is my main website that many of you have seen. This is an old school Y2K aesthetic website built with more classic HTML. I've got blinkies and buttons and things like that. This is mostly meant to just be like a links page. I've featured like bio.link and other one link pages. I didn't want to use one that I didn't have hosts over because they all have specific limitations of what platforms they support and blah, 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 blah. Whereas this I have complete control over, even if it looks ridiculous and gaudy, and most of you may not want this, but this is my vibe. And so I have things like links to my email that you can reach out to, various social media profiles, my writing up on PC World. I need to delete that Threads button. I'm not actually using Threads these days, as well as links to where you can tip me or support on Patreon, Ko-fi, that kind of stuff, as well as embeds of my shop. And then I do have some functional articles, like some of my favorite programs. I probably need to update this for Mac, Linux, and Windows, as well as links to my other blogs and other places. I typically manage this, funny enough, with Adobe Dreamweaver. The WYSIWYG editors of the days past were my favorite way to make these classic HTML pages, and it saddens me that that kind of tool has completely died off. And at some point, Adobe's going to yoink Dreamweaver out of here, and I'm going to be stuck. But I love Dreamweaver. I'm going to keep using it. So this is just a basic, what's called a static site, which means it is just HTML files. For this, I literally just edit HTML files. Now, I do not have Dreamweaver set up on this machine where I'm demoing this at the moment, but I will show you something. But before we get to that, I get my domains through a service called Namecheap. I think I have an affiliate link for them, and if so, I will have it in the description. But I honestly don't know if I still do. This is just one of many domain registrars. You can use this. Porkbun's another decent one, as well as you can get them straight through Cloudflare, and Cloudflare has a little bit better DNS. I love Namecheap for getting my actual domains, and I've had very minimal issues with that, and they even have WordPress hosting as well. However, their DNS population, whatever, when you change your DNS servers for like redirecting URLs and things like that, it always takes way longer than expected, and it seems to be specifically Namecheap that has issues. But for example, you can just start typing in a domain name, that idea that you have. So let's just say self-hosting. I can search, and it will give you self-hosting with a variety of different top-level domain extensions that you could use. So like selfhosting.to, .info, .xyz was already registered. Inc, Fit, Live, and it'll show you which ones were already taken, and it will show you all the fancy new ones. And I do have some fancy URLs, not just .coms. But so I use Namecheap for most of that. I have domains through a few other registrars as well, but they've been my favorite to at least quickly browse and like find the cool ones. Now, the hosting of the HTML files and where I'm going to show you editing this for this specific website, as well as my Analog Dreams blog, which is a straightforward just text blog about my tech philosophy and whatever. This is at analogdreams.zip, by the way, if you didn't know about it. These are both hosted through a service called NeoCities. NeoCities is an attempt at recreating the classic GeoCities Angel Fire era of the internet. And they are just a basic free if you are doing super limited stuff, or cheap web hosts where people host their old school classic websites. And you can always browse here for some inspiration of how to do some wacky stuff with just like classic HTML. People have made some ridiculous things, and it's always fun browsing the most popular websites of that people have going on. Like some of this just looks incredible in terms of just like doing this. This has like 3D rendering and stuff. This is straight out of like a 2000s PC game. I need to see this on a CRT. This one is super funky and is also, this one's a really functional link site. I'm very inspired by this. They've got all their socials here, their GitHub, and where you can support them, and then you can enter, and it's a freaking, it's the galaxy. This is cool. This is really cool. A lot of people are way better at HTML stuff than I am, but lots of cool stuff on here, and you can host them. This is a 3DS through, this one's a chat website. You can host through NeoCities. And with that, you just upload the HTML files for your website. So you can see here, I just have a set of files. And if I wanted to edit them, I could literally just click edit here, and it takes me to a text editor, and I can start editing HTML. As mentioned, I don't like living in a notepad or a text editor for editing websites. I'm an artist. I'm not a programmer, as much as I may have learned over the years. And so I like using a WYSIWYG editor or something else that can give me more real-time feedback. But that is an option available to you. NeoCities has tools available for you to like download your website files and things like that. And I'm actually going to show you that because my other website I host with NeoCities is a blog. Now, this is still a static site generated blog. A static site is a website that just has straightforward, unchanging HTML files that, and CSS, whatever else, but not like dynamic frameworks and things like that. And in fact, I see on here, I have a Twitter link and an Instagram link. I don't use either of those anymore. I need to get rid of them. But you're not hosting like a dynamic CMS like WordPress or something that's going to change all the experience for all your users and things like that. They are pretty static, but that means that they are very stable, very secure, a lot easier because no one can log in and mess with this and whatever. So I just have a basic text blog here at analogdreams.zip. And for this, I use the static site CMS generator here called Publi. I've made a video on this before. I will have it linked down below, so I'm going to skim over a bunch of it. But basically, I get a desktop program. My only complaint is that it's really obnoxious to try to use this across multiple computers. I've tried syncing it on a NAS and things like that and had some weird issues, so I pretty much have to be at this computer if I want to post. But I just like with WordPress or anything else, I can just make a blog post, and then when I am done, I will not actually do that post. I want to discard that. But once I am done, I go to sync your website. Now, they actually have options for you to sync with GitHub and a million other different ways that you could host. So like if I go to server here, change server type, you could sync it with FTP. You could use Amazon S3 buckets, GitHub pages, or GitLab pages, Netlify, Google Cloud, whatever. I actually just have it synced to static files because I am uploading them to NeoCities. NeoCities then gives me you can mount your NeoCities storage as a drive on your computer like in Windows, or they have a terminal program, a CLI program, where I can actually, what am I doing? I went to the wrong thing. If I open a terminal at the folder that I'm at, I can literally just type NeoCities push. And it's going to push period to upload the current directory. It's just going to push all of the files in my folder to my NeoCities account. Anything that already exists and is not different will be skipped. Anything that's new or has changed will be re-uploaded, and then my website is immediately available. It is pretty sick. I don't really need to do this because I haven't actually changed anything, but it's a pretty nice little workflow that I have a little bit more control over. So those are my two basic sites. A blog made with Publi, uploaded as a static site to NeoCities, and then a classic HTML website created in HTML with Dreamweaver, uploaded to NeoCities. But I have a lot more other things. So the next thing we're going to jump to is my portfolio site. My portfolio site here, which I am terrible at updating as I always am, allows me to feature my glitch art, my photography, my graphic design, whatever I want in different albums and things like that on here, as well as a link to some other ways to reach me. Again, I have Twitter and Instagram links I need to get rid of here, but that's what happens. This is actually hosted with Adobe, which obviously only works if you have an Adobe subscription of some sort. This is provided as part of their Creative Cloud subscriptions. It's included in the photography plan with just Photoshop and Lightroom, as well as their full Creative Suite plan. I know a lot of people are moving away from Adobe and trying to cancel their subscription and whatever. More power to you. I have been on that train for a long time. But if you are someone who is an artist or a photographer or whatever who keeps an active Adobe subscription, at least while you have it, you get a free portfolio option available to you. You can actually create up to 5 sites for free. So then I can come in here and edit it. I can have it sync to albums in my Lightroom Classic library so that it automatically uploads photos from there to sync changes and things like that, which is really powerful. You get to edit pages, edit your albums, all that kind of stuff. It has a pretty kind of like Squarespace-y style graphical editor. I don't think it's the most amazing thing in the world, but as something that just functions for me to kind of play around with and have some sort of portfolio, I think it's pretty slick, and it allows you to link out to other things as well. So that's just hosted through Adobe, available for free. I was like, why not? I struggle at keeping up a portfolio. I don't want to build something out myself right now. I can literally just link it through Lightroom for at least my photography, which is super convenient. So I've got I haven't really updated for 2025, but got some cool photos in there. That's that one. I also have some new blogs that I've been working on for a couple different subjects. The first is my cooking blog that I started last summer that is focused on picky eating adults, as well as just the general recipes that I make, because you all are always asking for my recipes in the comment section, as well as one called gamer.dad. That is the domain name. That is one of those sick domain names. I had no idea .dad was a domain extension, but it is. So I have the domain gamer.dad. And that is a blog about being a parent in gaming, about intentional gaming, mindfulness, that kind of stuff. And so that is available over here. So I have gamer.dad. This is set up as a straightforward newsletter blog. So I've got blog posts about my breakup with multiplayer shooters. I actually have contributors doing some blog posts too, which is great. So this one is from Philip about gaming as he had his child. And so I've been working on that. And then I have my Neurospicy cooking blog, which again is focused on recipes as well as understanding picky eating and why you can't just fix it and whatever from a person who's been a picky eater since they were a child. But I have put in a ton of effort over the past 3 to 5 years, learning and mastering cooking at home for myself to the extent that we have very little processed foods these days, because understanding the science and the ingredient relationships and things like that has really helped me expand my palate and be more comfortable eating things. Both of these are super basic blogs, and they are hosted through a service called Ghost. Ghost is a newsletter blog kind of service here that allows you to, it gives you a basic CMS. It gives you access to loop in newsletter tools. It doesn't have its own newsletter service. You have to use Mailgun, which you will see here, the 2 most recent blog posts have 0 openings because they literally never sent to anyone, even though it says they did, because I ran into some crazy issues with Mailgun. I really wish Ghost supported other newsletter services, but really nice little platform and a open source self-hostable alternative to Substack and things like that, because Substack's run by some not so great people at this point. And so Ghost is the software that I'm using to run both of these blogs. The cooking blog as well as the gamer.dad blog, but they are hosted through a hosting provider called Peekapods. Peekapods is a service that allows you to manage and host server instances for various open source applications. So you can see here, I have management for my 2 different blogs available. I can restart them. I can adjust their environment variables, very kind of Docker-ish based. But then if we go to available apps, they have tons of stuff, including a bunch of stuff you would see people typically self-host and run on their like Unraid servers or something. So you could host some of those tools that you might want access to outside of your home network, like Fresh RSS, on the internet safely through a service like this without having to give anyone. They've got image support, Kativa, Link Warden. So you could host a lot of these kind of open source services through Peekapods. And so this has been very cost effective for me to host these blogs. Super affordable, given that I don't have a ton of traffic. I'm not uploading big bulky files. I've got photos for the various blogs, but that's it. And so been a super easy option for managing that if I want an actual newsletter. My blog over here that I host on NeoCities with Publi, it is limited in its functionality by being a static site. At the moment, I can't get search working at all, and I'm really sorry for that. And there is no real newsletter service. There is an RSS feed that you can subscribe to, but there's not a newsletter service. I would have to manage my own separate newsletter and send out blasts when I make new posts rather than having it baked in here. So that is one reason that I'm running these blogs as ghost blogs, because I can integrate a newsletter and I could monetize them. I could do paid member subscription-based postings as well, which I don't currently do, but I'm open to the option of just another way to expand my business, basically. Next up is a website that I have unfortunately kind of abandoned due to my inability to get additional support on creating posts for this, as well as not having the time for. I still pay for everything to make this happen, which is really unfortunate because it's been kind of expensive, but that is the StreamGuides.gg website. My dream for this was for me to not be so pressured to make videos about everything. And I have kind of done this, as like I made my last post on here, which was from October of 2024. Yikes. But was about a sub 2-hour webcam update that the creators put out and things like that. And I didn't make a video on this. I just made a post on this. But I wanted to be able to make news posts, written versions of all of my tutorials, because I think that is important. Unfortunately, I just wasn't able to keep up the load, so I haven't done a lot with this, but I'm still proud of what I did with the site during my time with it. And this is running WordPress as the software side of things. So this is a full CMS that you can log into. Has security issues, but I can manage lots of different types of embeds. I have a million different plugins running. It is a lot. It is super intense. I'm not a fan of WordPress, which is why I kept seeking out alternatives for my other blogs, but it's what I used for this. It's easy to get up and running, and I think that's just hosted on Namecheap. Namecheap has their own WordPress hosting available affordably as an option. I'm pretty sure I'm just using that. So that is that blog. I also have my own shop page where I sell my OBS course. If you didn't know, I have an OBS definitive guide with a lot of tutorials getting you everything you need to know, from having never launched OBS before up to using it professionally. I distribute that through this shop, but I also have other things available, such as assets like my DaVinci Resolve power grades for creating VHS-like aesthetics. I've got texture packs. I've got Lightroom presets, Capture One presets. I've got pins. I've got stickers. I've got some more pins and stickers I'm going to be listing on the site soon. Actually, I think I've already listed them all. If I load it here, yeah. I got tons of pins available. Go stack them up. Cheaper if you buy, in bulk rather than just one at a time. But that is hosted through Shopify. Shopify is an interesting service because it is a really powerful, all-in-one, easy to get up and going tool for creating and selling products. It is also something you don't own and have no control over. It is fully software as a service. I think I pay about $300 a year for it. And at present, it has been worth it because I've made more than $300 a year worth out of products from it. However, I don't own any of the software. It's not running on anything I have that much control over. It's better than using something that I have no control over. And this domain, by the way, is glitch.mov, another one of those cool top level domains, if you want to check out my shop. Now that you couldn't read it on the website. But it's better than a lot of options where don't just list your merch through like Stream Elements or YouTube or something, because you have absolutely zero control over it. But I have run into some issues. First and foremost, there is a infinite world of functionality that you can expand your Shopify shop into. But all of those are through plugins, all of which are typically subscription-based. And so you'd have to be really making bank to get a lot of the functionality you want out of your store, because you have to pay a subscription for most of those features, which really sucks. I do pay a subscription for the course feature that gives you access to the course itself on my website, which is maybe not ideal. Like I said, it's been financially worth it for me so far, but there are some issues there. Secondly, there are some issues with how it integrates with YouTube ads. When I originally set up the site, it was this really powerful thing that I could link my products under my YouTube videos. So you could, if I talked about something, you could immediately see that and go click on it and go buy it, especially for the OBS course. I think that was responsible for a good chunk of my sales. However, Google has now banned me from doing this. They have said that my shop here contains misleading information and possible harmful products, where I sell my stickers and my pins and my texture packs and my OBS course. It's apparently misleading and harmful to buyers. So they will no longer let it be listed on Google or in my YouTube account. And I have appealed it over the course of 3 years, and I apparently reached my appeals limit. Not once did they tell me specifically anything wrong with it. I did everything I could over the course of those 3 years to browse the policy page, read the policy word for word. I could not find a single piece of information that applies to me. I even bought a separate private mailbox address in case like the mailing address that I had associated with the thing was against the rules or something. I could never find anything wrong, and now I can no longer appeal that declaration of my shop. So it is just permanently stuck in that regard. So like the deal that Linus had where they sold the exclusive discount on the translucent screwdrivers through YouTube, I could never do something like that because I cannot link them together. Frustrating, but it's allowed me to sell some cool stuff, list some cool stuff, do some art prints, do some photo prints, do my OBS course and whatever. So really cool, and I'm glad I did it. Next up, let's move on to the podcast. My buddy and I, BBK Dragoon, are together a part of 2 different podcasts. One is the Dualcomm podcast, which we host on his channel. And then the second one, which is a spinoff of that, is Dualcomm Party Chat, where we respond to comments and things like that. Both of those are hosted through a service called Podbean. Podbean allows you to upload your episodes, add metadata, descriptions, everything like that. It creates an RSS feed for it that viewers can subscribe to, automatically download themselves, use their own app, whatever, or it will distribute all of these episodes to all the other podcast services. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pocket Casts, whatever. they're all picked up through here, which is really powerful. It's pretty affordable for what that is. It's not something you can easily do for free. I've literally been hosting podcasts since 2006. I just found the traces of my original podcast recently. I did discover when I ran file recovery on my old MP3 player a couple years ago and found those original recordings where I am a squeaky kid with a ton of background noise trying to make a podcast on a tiny little MP3 player about D&D. And I reference another podcast of someone that I watched and who was like an inspiration to me. And I found out that he's still running the podcast. So I shot him an email and he was super stoked because he actually gave me feedback on my first episode. I think I only did one episode of that one. It's still out there. I don't think I'm going to link anyone to it because, like I said, I think I only did the one episode. But this is super handy. And then we are just given a straight up URL for the page on Podbean itself. I think it's this. I didn't actually check this. partychat.podbean.com and dualcomm.podbean.com, where you can just get the episodes. We do, however, route that podcast through Patreon now. So I have my own Patreon, patreon.com/EposVox for my videos. That's just a combination of all my projects at this point. I was trying to separate them out so I could like prioritize what I put my effort in based on who's paying me. But at this point, anything me is run through patreon.com/EposVox or through, for the podcast, it's patreon.com/dualcomm. We also have the podcast run through there. Here you can follow for free and just get a non-algorithmic feed that lets you know when the new episodes are up, when you can get both the video links to the episodes as well as they actually pull the RSS feeds of the audio episodes of the podcast and put them together, which is incredible. Or you can pay to get access to exclusive talks that we do. You can either pay for them individually or subscribe, and we kind of encourage that you subscribe, you listen to what you want to listen to, and then you bail if you want until we have more stuff for you to listen to. We are totally cool with that. But we use Patreon as an off-site way to distribute that as well. We don't have a dedicated site for it that we own. However, I don't feel that that's necessary because none of the core content could we reasonably distribute in a place that we own. Like we rely, since it is big content that needs distributed, we rely on distribution for that. Now, I want to talk about this because the IndieWeb site refers to a couple different strategies here that I like to utilize when it comes to content posting, and I use a couple various different strategies. The first one is Posse, P-O-S-S-E, post on own site, syndicate elsewhere, which is where you post to your own site, say the blog, or I do have a PeerTube instance that I upload things to, but it is not public facing, so unfortunately I will not be showing it to you right now. I only use it for backend stuff. That is where, before I post something anywhere else, I post it to a site I own and have control over, and then I find whatever means necessary to syndicate that to other sites. The second method, which is what we use for, say, the podcast, where we kind of depend on the content distribution platforms, is instead of Posse, it's Pesos, post elsewhere, syndicate on own site. So that is kind of the strategy that we do with the podcast, because there's no point in us like trying to distribute the MP3s directly because we can't easily do our own RSS feed for that. That'll work with podcast hosts. Like it's a whole scheme that's been going on for like 30 years to get podcasts distributed. So there's not a whole lot of advantage there. We're coming up on the end here. Don't worry. We are coming up on the end. I guess I'll go on and mention, along with Patreon, I also use Floatplane as another outlet to monetize my videos. So if you want to subscribe, get ad-free uploads of videos there, generally higher quality. I try to do most of them on Floatplane. There are some that I don't get to for one reason or another, but I try to keep it there. There's a handful of you that support me there. It means the world. Just another option. I do have another way that I monetize with crowdfunding that I will showcase in a moment. But another thing I wanted to talk about was my music. I distribute this with two different platforms. The first is Bandcamp. Bandcamp is one of the best places to buy music because you can buy digital albums that you get DRM free and you can get in whatever format you want. As long as the uploader uploaded it properly, you can get completely uncompressed waves, you can get FLAC, you can get MP3s, whatever. And that is the case for my album as well. I uploaded it in 24-bit, 48 kilohertz waves, and you can get whatever quality you want. But I also distribute it to streaming services with DistroKid, which is a paid kind of distribution platform. Really powerful. It's what basically everyone uses these days that aren't part of a major music label, including like StreamBeats and stuff. So there's that. I also have forums at demodisc.zone. I've had these running for a couple years now. We use it off and on. You see there's some threads I have missed here. This is a place that I love. It's at demodisc.zone. I freaking love that domain. And this is another place that I actually utilize to try to, get offsite fan funding if you are interested. If you come over here to supporter access in the left-hand side, I do post all of my I don't always have them done early, but when my videos are done early, I post them here ahead of time with download links where you can download the video and watch them on your Jellyfin server or whatever. And you can subscribe here for like, I think it's $3 or $5 a month to help support me. That way it's off of YouTube and not dependent on Patreon either. The forums are hosted on a cloud service provider called Headsner Cloud. This is also what I use for my PeerTube instance. This is just a big cloud storage and web hosting provider that do a ton of stuff. I don't even know how to begin to summarize what all they support, but it has been a very cheap way to host VPSs for my forums. My forums, the software itself is Discourse, which I have some complaints about, but overall has been fairly good to me. And I host that and my PeerTube instance in Headsner Cloud. And I have like a few different servers running together for both for these that utilize, actually, I think we've reduced them to one each, but at one point in time I had separate ones for like storage and for transcoding the videos and things like that. But I use Headsner Cloud for that. So if you're looking for like a VPS solution to host Discord bots or services or whatever, and you have the capacity to manage the setup for these things, Headsner's actually pretty good. I actually have a IT buddy that has set up the PeerTube and my forums for me. I think I did most of the forum stuff, but then he had to fix a couple things for me, and then he completely did PeerTube because these are not very easy to set up services straight out of without having a clue what you're doing. Whereas if you're wanting to host something like, say, the Ghost or these other open source things, again, Picopods is the way to go for that. Anytime you don't know what you're doing and you don't want to be an IT nerd, the Picopods or a service like that that has these pre-made ways to host services are a really powerful way to go, but they may be more limited. I forgot to mention this before, but my Ghost blog on Picopods, I cannot enable analytics, which Ghost has recently added support for through a secondary, where is it? They have analytics support through a secondary service that you would have to host and tie into your Ghost blog. And if you're hosting this yourself and know what you're doing, you could do that easily. Picopods have said that they can't really seem to get it working in their Docker configurations at the moment, so they haven't been able to offer that. So I can't get analytics for my blog. Headsner Cloud is a lot more you're doing it yourself for a lot of these things. Another thing I have hosting is a Mastodon instance. This is not available to the public. This is just for me, a few friends, a few trusts, just to be kind of a safe place for these people. Glitch.lgbt is my specific instance, but again, it's not open, so don't go try to make a user. I will probably reject you, but it's a way for me to have complete control of my presence on Mastodon. I honestly don't use Mastodon a ton these days. I'm not the biggest fan of it overall, but I love a lot of what the Fediverse stands for and the opportunities it provides, and I wanted to be a part of it. I am hosting it with a service called Spacebear, which I just purchased through their Gumroad. I actually pay a lot. I pay for the $42 a month service, which was not necessary, and I've been paying that for a long time. So I've actually just emailed them to see if I can downgrade. I've got no real complaints. Obviously, their signups are disabled at the moment, but you know, they may open them again. But I don't have any complaints about Spacebear as a host. You can certainly do it way cheaper if you do it yourself or you know what you're doing. In fact, my IT friend that set up my forums and stuff is actually the mindly.social admin, and he hosts that and has tons of stuff going there and can do it much cheaper. I think he hosts that whole thing for like a massive instance, much cheaper than I host mine. But I didn't want to be responsible for that. I just wanted to own it. So that's an option available to you. With PixelFed, another federated service, I got excited about the idea of having a non-Instagram, non-Facebook owned service for sharing things, as I am a visual artist, a visual creator. But I learned as I distanced myself from these major big tech social media services that I kind of lost the drive to really partake in the sharing and trying to get feedback and likes on everything over time. Oh yeah, I made this fun Steam Deck poster based on a photo someone had posted on Reddit. I had a lot of fun with that. That was in November. I haven't posted since then. I barely post, but like, I am not hosting PixelFed. Again, it's another one that's kind of annoying to host, but I did just join like the main instance for it, and that's fine too. Lastly, I have my own URL shortener. EposVox.gg/Discord is usually the link that I share for my Discord link so that I can easily call out URLs that I want you to click on for specific things if I don't have the domain control. So like if I'm sharing like a product link, I'm not going to try to read out a whole URL, or sometimes they break on YouTube or whatever. So I have my own URL shortener for this. This is completely private. Only I can log in and use this. My IT buddy that hosted a couple things is hosting this just on a basic shared hosting plan. Basic PHP, super lightweight to host, and it's something that you could do for yourself as well. But I just wanted to quickly shout it out, even though I don't really have, I delegated it to someone else. One other service that I have not started using yet, but I'm looking into is I want a small VPS for hosting little things. Like I created a Discord bot that automatically embeds TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Reddit, videos, and photos, since the embeds for those don't work on Discord. And I was just running that on my computer, but I keep forgetting to run it and whatever. So I want a basic VPS to play around with for hosting little things like that. And you could check out Linode, again, Hetzner. I'm actually going to check out Netcup next, as it was recommended to me by a buddy as being super cheap for super small servers. So I'm going to be checking that out. But again, I don't have experience with it yet. This has been a really long video. I hope it's at all been helpful or inspiring for the many different ways you can host and own, or have at least more control over, without algorithms or big tech involved, your own online services, your own online presentation, your presence, your experience, and kind of curate and manage it yourself in a variety of different ways. If you have any additional questions, shoot them over on the forums. Again, that's demodesk.zone. My voice is going out at this point. Or I guess in the comments, I will respond to what I can. Go check out my various sites. Support me where you can. I am in a lot of places, a lot at once, and less am I on the big corporate, big tech social media platforms. It's just not doing it for me. There's so many problems right now. I'm back to the indie web. Remember to be kind, rewind.